Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rahmat Empowerment Wala here. Welcomes you in Empowering Minds. I hope you are better in your health conditions and you are enjoying our show, Empowering Minds. Um, we have with us Cory Lewis, and he is a very good guest in terms of speaking about empowering minds because he runs his own podcast too, and we would like to learn one or two more things from him. So let's jump towards Cory and welcome him. Hi, Cory Lewis. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I will try to give a brief introduction, and maybe that will allow me to get over my nervousness at being on your show.
No
But
problem. Go ahead.
I am, as you said, Corey Lewis. I'm from Tennessee. I live in Bristol, Tennessee. For anyone that has any knowledge of geography around here, and I've been here off and on. I've lived here about my whole life, and I'm here today mostly, I think, because as Ramas said, I'm a podcaster and I podcast about being a better dad. I had my son right around the middle or so of the pandemic, and most families in America know somebody that had a child right around that time because we were all stuck inside. So I'm no different. I'm no more. I'm no better. But when I had my son, I realized pretty quickly that my father hadn't taught me anything about being a good dad. And I don't want to like criticize him because he had his issues. His father wasn't any better. And I've learned that as as it's gone, as time's gone on. He's dead now and I can't talk to him about these things. It's sad that I learned all this after the fact, but be that as it may, I was starting with a blank slate. I had a son and I didn't know how to raise him. And the only real blueprint that I had was that if a question arose in terms of what I should do, all I had to say was, well, what would my dad do? And then I would do the opposite of that. And that was probably going to be the correct thing. But there was so much more in terms of gaps and holes that I needed to fill for with dad knowledge. And I thought that even though I'm just awful introvert that's super shy and doesn't ever want to talk to anybody, I thought that the best way to do that would be to talk to other dads. And so the idea for the show was born. I was already listening to podcasts and I had uh, dabbled in podcasting up until then, but nothing serious. And I took my desire to be a better dad and I ran with it until here a year later. I'm not going to say by any means a successful podcaster. I don't make any money or anything like that, but it is a hobby that I've developed a little bit of a following with, and I know that I'm helping people with the content and the episodes that I'm putting out there. And if I can do that and be a better dad in the process, then I'm all for it.
Great, wonderful. And as long as you are enjoying your hobby, it doesn't matter how it is going to give you some earning or not, as long as you are enjoying it. That's more important.
Yeah, for sure. It's not about the money necessarily. I'm enriching my mind and my life.
Great, wonderful. So, what has been the most surprising things you have learned about fatherhood, in last 2, 3 years?
Oh man. Well, just how complex it is and how like you look at fatherhood from the outside and you're like, "Oh, that's going to be hard. You've got to keep your son alive. You got to watch after him." And that's about where you stop thinking. But then when you actually have your son or daughter in front of you and you're holding them, your whole world view just shifts and you start to look at things in a whole new light. I remember before my son came, I really enjoy reading comic books, and in a lot of comic books, the villain comes in and he just destroys the whole city, and there's casualties in the thousands or millions or whatever. And when when I was just regular old Cory and I didn't have my child, I would read those comics and I'd be like, oh, okay, thousands dead. That's just numbers. It's just a comic book, no big deal. And now I will read that and I'll be like, oh my, no, no, all those poor kids and their parents, and they're just that's awful. And it's crazy just how things that like would not affect me have made me so sensitive now that I have my son to think about and to view through his lens. And in addition to that, I've learned all about dad guilt and how you, no matter how hard you try, you never think you're doing a good enough job. And you always think that there's some way that you can improve or some way that you're coming up short. That's super fun to deal with. I'm so happy that I've experienced that. But I've also learned that there's just an undescribable joy that you get in connecting with your child or children. Just something that if you're not a parent, you really don't understand. And I have no idea, maybe you are a parent, maybe you're not, but it is so enjoyable to hear your child's laughter and to watch them run around and play and do the weirdest, dumbest things, but you're just you get so much out of being there for it and spending time with them. And I never could have comprehended prior to having a son that I was going to experience emotions of that depth.
Wonderful. I am a bit far away from that bridge of having a married life or a kid. I am a bit far from that, but we'll travel that bridge when it
Mhm.
comes.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. So how important it is for a dad to be present and to have a strong role in their children's life.
Oh man, that's like when people ask me for my advice, that is my number one piece. It's just to be present, to be there, to
Mm.
just to be reachable for your kid. Even if you're working 5 days a week, your child knows that you're going to come home at the end of the day and be there every night, and they know that, or need to know, that they can come to you for any question, any problem that they have, and that you're going to be there for them, and you're going to listen, and you're going to help them to the best of your abilities. And I learned well before being a parent that if you're not there for your kid, then you're going to create obstacles that cannot be surmounted. My I have so many memories from my childhood where I needed my mother or I needed my father, and they just weren't there. They were off, drinking or doing drugs or partying or whatever they were doing. I don't know. I was a child. But those are things that I can never forget. And my son is never going to have that in his life. He's never going to come home from grandma's and find me gone when I said that I was going to be there. I am first and foremost focused on always being a presence in my son's life. We kind of talked about this before we started rolling, but I have a problem with depression. I'm depressed pretty much all the time, and I don't want to get in, too deep into that. But there's times where it gets so bad that I'm contemplating like permanent solutions. And the one thing that I always have to stop me is the first thing that I always come to is my son. I cannot do anything that will put his life in jeopardy. I can't do anything that will uh, you know put his future in jeopardy. I am his number one fan. There's no one else other than his mother on this planet that will ever love him as much as I do. And I know that in my darkest hour, I'm always going to keep fighting because I have him and he needs me. And he needs me, as you said, to be present.
Wonderful, amazing. Parenting can be incredibly rewarding, but also challenging. So, can you talk about a challenge you have faced as a dad or how you have overcame it?
Well, this one, I mentioned I'm a stay-at-home dad. and I don't know how prevalent that is in your country. It may be that that's really more of an American thing, but even with that being an American thing, it's still looked down upon by, a general amount of people. It's generally accepted that the dad should be the one that's, working all the time and that the mom should be at home. And we tried that, and we both were working and we had a babysitter, and it was just we realized that I wasn't making enough from my job to offset the fact that we were pushing our son off on someone else. My
Okay.
wife is lucky enough that she's able to make enough money, in addition to what I do pull in to support the family. And the the concept of a stay-at-home dad, it is perfect for us. It works very well. I've already started to teach my son in terms of ABCs, 1 2 3, things like that. I've taught him a little. He won't ever repeat it back to me, but I've started teaching him a little bit of Spanish. I taught myself Spanish, and then when I went to college, I minored in Spanish. So I'm trying to, start that learning process for him early. And I know that I'm able to do that because I'm a stay-at-home dad. And I am so appreciative that I'm able to spend that time with him and be the one that gets him up in the morning and puts him down for a nap. And I don't have to rely on anyone else for that, and worry about whether they're going to be as devoted as I am.
Wonderful. How do you believe that media's portrayal of fathers has influenced our society, expectations of fatherhood, and what changes would you like to see?
Well, I think that it's I don't know if the media started it, but the media certainly perpetuates the idea that fathers need to be tough, that fathers are just like rocks that have no feelings, and that you can, worry about everything else in life, but don't worry about dad because he's always going to be there. And
Yeah.
that's not the case. And I think that one of the changes that needs to be made is that we need to normalize the fact that just because someone is a father doesn't mean that they're suddenly like Superman. We still get down, we still get, depressed, we still feel bad about things. Maybe something went wrong at work, or maybe the bills are piling up. These are things that are obviously stressful and that dads deal with just like anybody else. And if the media does have a part to play, I think that they could take a step towards, showing people that dads are it. You don't expect your dad to be perfect. Be thankful that he is. Don't expect your dad to be tough. Be thankful that he is tough and that he can take care of you. Because until you do that, like, dads are just going to be taken for granted. Because if it's accepted that you're tough, then when you are tough, you're not going to get any thanks for it. You're not going to get any respect.
Wonderful, Corey. Okay, you are a podcaster, and your podcast name is Your Two Dads, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wonderful. So I'm a podcaster too. So it would be very happy. I would feel very happy to ask some one or two questions about your podcast. So just tell us, how did it started? When did you start that, or what was the idea behind it?
Well, it started shortly after I had my son, which was during or toward the end of the pandemic. And I quickly learned that I had a lot had a lot to learn about being a dad. There was so much that revolved around raising a child that I had no experience with. Everything from when you should stand up for yourself in a fight to when you should, or how you should throw a ball. Like, I had to learn all these things on my own. And my dad was not there to, play catch with me or to teach me right from wrong. He That was not him. And so I I knew that in most cases, when I had an issue in my parenthood journey, if I could ask myself what would my dad do, then I know that I would probably be doing the right thing if I just did the opposite of that. And that carried me for a while, but I knew that there was a lot more to it. And despite the fact that I am super shy and super introverted, I knew that talking to other dads would be a good way for me to learn. And I was already interested in podcasting and listened to podcasts virtually all day long. I almost always have an earbud in my ear, like listening to something. And I knew that I could do that, that it didn't take much to start, and that it wouldn't be too hard for me to start talking to other dads. And it it took a little bit of some growing pains for me to get used to it. We didn't immediately start off with interviews, but we pretty quickly, branched off to that. And I started asking these dads questions that I was experiencing, or questions about problems that I was experiencing, getting their best dad advice and things of that nature. And it's really helped me in terms of my own parenthood journey. There, I can't say that, that there's times where I'm like, oh, yes, I'm using that technique that I learned from so and so. But I know that by talking to these dads, that I am gaining tools that have helped me in my journey, being a good dad, and that I can only improve in so many ways. Like, even if you're a good dad, there's always something that you could do better, and we all know that. And I'm no different. So I keep on keeping on, interviewing dad after dad, and learning and growing, and my goal is to, be a better dad myself, be a more wise father, be more, compassionate and caring towards my son, and to hopefully help some of these other dads that may be listening to the podcast or listening to some of the clips or reels that I share on social media, and they learn something, or they're going through something, and I help them in some way in their struggles, and I've had people tell me that I am helping. So it is really, you said at some point, it is a hobby. There's no doubt about that, but it is a very profound hobby in the reach that I get, and the people that I can help, and the message that I can share. And I am just super grateful that I'm able to do that. I'm thankful that my wife is able to watch my son when we need, when I need to be in here and record. And I'm thankful that I've met all these wonderful people. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're the first person I've ever talked to face that's from Pakistan. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, I enjoy it just all the way around. So I'm thankful that it started. I'm thankful that I get to do it, and I'm thankful that there's really no end in sight.
Wonderful. And I love this internet because of this. I take this as a blessing. That because of this, we are talking about, like, we are sitting on a cup of coffee, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, we never would have talked if not for the Facebook, I guess, was the thing that we're most thankful for in terms of connecting. But it's just awesome. Like, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, and we never would have had that opportunity before.
Great. And talking about learning and advices, what is the best advice you have ever received? And what is the worst advice you have ever received? Could you tell us?
Well, I know I'll start with the worst advice. That was from my dad. The worst advice I ever received in terms of just being an adult in general was from him when he told me that it's totally fine for me to, and it may be that this is more of an American thing. Bear with me if it is, and just let me know on. But he told
Okay.
me that if I wanted to apply for a credit card, that I could feel free to, and I could use that credit card until I ran out the limit, and then when the time came to pay the bill, that I just ignore the phone call and apply for a different credit card. And that's honestly advice that my dad gave to me. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's the worst advice I've ever gotten.
It
But the
is.
best yeah, yeah. So the best advice I've ever gotten, I guess, would be just from the people that are whoever it was that told me first that what your son really needs most is for you to be there. That's I'm thankful to them because that is my best advice. That's the best I've ever heard in terms of life and just being a parent, because my life, for the most part, is being a parent. If my son succeeds and becomes a healthy, happy person, then I'm thankful with the job I've done. And I think that if I'm there for him, if I'm open and honest and I'm able to communicate, then that you know that's the best thing I could do. And that all starts with just being there for them, being present. And that's what I would say is the best advice I ever got.
Wonderful. And inshallah, one day you'll see your son getting prosper and you'll be there, inshallah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, talking about podcasts, I would love to hear how do you prepare for it? What are the preparation behind your podcast?
Well, I've never actually been asked that before. So I guess, I'm at a point now where I've got quite a few episodes that I've already recorded, and that are just waiting there to be edited and released. So I'm not super focused on finding new guests to come on. That used to be a pretty big part of everything, was going on to Facebook and trying to find dads and or whoever, people that were interested in dad things, that could come on the podcast and talk to me, or that were willing to talk to me. And now that I'm kind of beyond that, I guess for the most part, a regular recording day involves me checking in to make sure that the guest is still good to go, because sometimes it can be a while since we last talked. And as long as everything's good there, I will typically get my setup. I've got my little my light behind me that makes sure my face isn't covered in shadow and all craggly looking. I got the little box I plug my microphone in, and I just set all that out on the table. And usually at that point, my wife is cooking dinner, and I'll spend that time with them. That's toward the end of my son's night, because shortly after that, I say goodnight to him. My wife puts him to bed, and then I will come in here, turn on every light that I can, shut every door, and get to work. I will always be. I think I mentioned this before. I'm always nervous every single time. I'm always like, I don't think there's ever been a time I've recorded where I didn't hope that the other person would tell me, "Hey, I can't make it. Can we reschedule?" My anxiety is just that bad. And so, I'm sitting there. I usually get down at the computer like maybe 10 minutes prior to start time. And then I will begin to either listen to music or do something to distract myself from my anxiety until it's time to start. And then, for my show, I'm typically the one doing a lot of the talking, at least at the beginning of the show. So I will, the person comes on the camera, we chat for a little bit like you and I did. And that helps a little bit, because then I get a feel for who they are and the type of person. But the anxiety doesn't really go away until we like, for my show, it's not live. It's all pre-recorded. So we just kind of like finish our chat, and then I'm like, okay, I'll count down, and then 3, 2, and then I start out, "Hey everybody, here we are again, blah 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 blah." And I will give an introduction. I don't really know how long it is, but basically I just talk for an introduction until my anxiety dies down. And then at that point, I will be like, and now I'm going to throw it to our guests. Why don't you introduce yourself? And then we just go from there. Um, yeah, I always have pre-planned questions that I can go to, but I do get a lot of the questions from what they say on the fly. They will sometimes give, uh, you know, tidbits of information during the introduction that are things that I can use to draw questions from when later on in the show. And it's just a lazy river of talking about dad stuff, or talking about movies or music, or anything that might interest dads. And then right around the halfway mark, I usually shift things towards the person that I'm interviewing, because oftentimes they will have a book or their own podcast or something like that that they're promoting. And so I give them that time to talk a little bit more about that we have, whatever we haven't already said, and get that message out to my listeners, whoever might be interested. And then, we wind it down. I usually end the show with a joke. They're very rarely ever funny, but I like to try, because sometimes we can get into some pretty dark stuff. We talk about depression and things like that, mental health. So I try to end things on a laugh, and at that point, we say our goodbyes. And if I haven't already, I usually add them on Facebook, and we continue our communication. Sometimes they'll come back on. It's not often, because I always have other people that are wanting to come on, but it's pretty typical to go that route, and uh, it's worked for me so far.
Wonderful, wonderful. And do you know Sir Rehan Allahwala by any chance?
Well, I know I've met quite a few people here recently. So many that I'm unable to really keep track of them all. I could go through the list, but there's a couple of people that I still yet have yet to make interviews with, because it's just not been. My wife was sick with the stomach flu for like Tuesday to yesterday, and so I wasn't really able to do that much during the week, and I've had to put a couple people off. You're the first person that Rehan put me in touch with, but even then, I didn't really know him that well. I had just met him. Gosh, I don't know. Just I don't really know how he found me. He started following me at one point, maybe because maybe he liked the stuff I was posting about dads, and then I saw that he was, what I could tell, like, was that he's kind of a big deal, and
Yes.
so I knew that for whatever reason he was someone that I was lucky to have come in contact with, and then I can't remember exactly what happened, but he offered to start like introducing me to some of his friends and associates, and it's just been an assortment of people. Like there's you, there's this he introduced me to this one like 15-year-old boy who is I think he said he wants to win the Nobel Prize or something like that. There's another God, I can't remember her age, maybe 16 or so, a young girl that wants to be in coding, and just so many different people that I would never have talked to, but it is like super awesome to be exposed to and to have the opportunity to talk to about what I do.
Wonderful. So basically, Sir Rehan Allahwala is working on people's connection. He works on building connection, building networks. So you and me talking to each other here is also because of him, because he taught me to do that. He encourages me to do that, and you and I met through him, right? So this is his way of teaching people, teaching his students. He runs a physical school here, three branches, Rehan School, and now he has moved to Rehan School Online Academy, where we are going to teach all over the world the children this networking thing, this network importance of network. So this is what he has been teaching for the last 20-25 years. So now internet has been all over the world, so it's easy for him, or it's easy for his students to reach out to the people all over the world. So I am here because of him, because of his encouragement, and he wants to be in your podcast too, because he's saying that he is a dad of 100 kids, so he could add much value to your podcast too.
Yeah, for sure. I was hoping that we would get to him coming on at some point.
Great. And I would request you to give interviews to some of his students also. You will really like them, and you will be amazed how well they will ask you, they will do the podcast with you. So I would request you should do some of them with podcast.
Well, I can say that if they're anywhere as professional and friendly as you are, then I mean I'm all about talking to them too. It's been a really enjoyable experience here with you. You never know what you're going to get when you start the show with
True.
somebody, but I mean you're really well spoken. Your English is amazing, so it's
Thank you.
been it's been a lot of fun.
Great, wonderful. So Corey, it's been 29 minutes, so I won't take much long from you. So tell us a little about your city and state, so we could get to know something about your city and state, how life there.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I guess the city that I live in currently is best known in America because it's a huge city for racing, stock car racing, NASCAR. I don't know if you've heard of NASCAR, but
No, I,
it's basically just a giant racing circuit, kind of like F1, but different
oh,
cars.
okay,
Um, and there's a huge track in my town, and there's actually two races this weekend. And so that's what my area is most known for. Tennessee, in general, is considered to be part of the southern United States. We are usually looked down upon for being slower, not as intelligent as the rest of the nation. We usually our accents tend to go slower than other people's in America, so it just exaggerates the fact that we seem stupid to them. But, by and large, I've always enjoyed living in the South. I think that, most people here are very friendly. The fl the s the flow of things, um, the speed of things that we do things a little bit slower, but it's not like people are, showing up late or missing appointments or anything like that. I feel a little bit more relaxed down here. I'm lucky enough where I live in the mountains, so I'm basically surrounded on all sides by green mountains, and I couldn't be, any happier for that. I like the ocean, and I've been to the desert and things of places like that. But I think that the mountains suit me best. And gosh, I guess I could go on, but for the most part, that's we're just known for Southern hospitality and good food.
wonderful. And food is always on number one list for me. I really like.
Right on.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Corey. Lastly, I would ask you my favorite question. What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself?
Oh man. So I get, it doesn't really matter what age we're talking about because my personality's been fairly similar throughout my life. But no matter how far back you would go, I would tell myself to just hang on. That I know that you're depressed right now. I know that things look dark, and I know that you probably don't even want to keep living, but life is going to get better. Your son, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to have a son, and he is amazing. And there is a God, and you are not alone. And just keep fighting because you've got some good things ahead of you, and it does get better.
Wonderful, Corey. Excellent. Thank you so much for your precious time and presence you have shown here in Empowering Minds, and you have empowered our minds. Thank you so much, Corey.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll share with you Sir Rehan Allahwala's vision about Rehan School and Rehan Online Academy. And if you find useful, share with in your circle and spread the mission, spread the message.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as long as we are able to continue, I mean, you and I will talk, I'm sure, from time to time. But as long as I'm able to continue talking to you guys and learning more about you, I'll be more than happy to do my part to spread the message.
Amazing. And his core values to train and teach the 1 million students who can impact 10 million lives individually.
Yeah, I mean, one person can help exponentially more people, so I can definitely understand that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Corey, again for your precious time. I really enjoyed your company here in Empowering Minds.
Thanks for having me. It was a good time. You were a great host, and I appreciate you taking your time as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, audience, I would love to hear your comments and your thinking about this podcast. I'll see you next time with next guest. Keep doing amazing things. Bye bye.